Be still and know that I am God. Now, I don't know what you're going through right now, but my guess is you've been through a few storms in your life. You've had a few hard seasons. There's been a few difficult moments, and maybe you're in one of those right now. And if that's you, if you've been in a storm before, if you are in a storm right now, this is a psalm that you need. It gives us an incredible hope that we have in God, and it also challenges us and points us in the right direction for where we should go when we're facing a hard season. So I think this is a psalm that we need to lean into so that we can be encouraged by it and also be challenged by it. Let's start by looking at what it actually says. Psalm 46:10 says this: "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." We'll look more at what this verse actually means in just a minute, but I want to start by looking at what the context of Psalm 46:10 is. You see, Psalm 46 is a short chapter. It's only 11 verses long. And in this chapter, what we see is the psalmist is praising God for his provision for his people, the Israelites. And what God has done, he's protected and rescued them from some kind of threat. Now, we're not exactly sure what that threat is, but it's reasonable to assume that Jerusalem, the Israelites' capital, was attacked, and God provided for a way out for them. And we can assume this because much of the language that we see throughout this whole chapter is war language. It talks about God being a fortress and a refuge, and that we don't need to fear those that are coming against us. There's a lot of kind of war language throughout this passage. And what we can assume is that the Israelites were facing this threat and they were scared. And although our circumstances might be a little different, my guess is you've had a season like that too. You've had those seasons where the foundations of your life were shaken and you didn't know what to do, you didn't know where to go. And that's where Psalm 46:10 gives us incredible hope. And I think what's really fascinating about this verse is this entire chapter was written in the third person. But once we get to Psalm 46:10, it switches to the first person as God speaks to his people. And he gives them incredible hope, and he challenges them to look to him. And so if you're in a storm, or the next time you go through a hard season, this is a verse that you need. With the context in mind, let's take a look at what this verse actually means. And to help you better understand what Psalm 46:10 means, I've broken this verse down into 3 different sections. And the first part of this verse simply says, "Be still." It's an interesting word that we translate from the Hebrew language as still. In the Hebrew language, it meant to cease striving, to relax, or to put down. And what the psalmist is saying is he's saying we need to stop fighting. Stop fighting. And remember the context here. God's people are facing some kind of threat. And our natural instinct when we face some kind of threat is to fight, right? We pick up our weapons. We push towards it. We try to get past it. When there's a hard season, we put our head down and we try to go through it. Or maybe we run away. And whatever your natural instinct is to do when you face a threat, typically there's some kind of movement involved. We're trying to fight it or we're trying to run away from it. And what Psalm 46:10 is telling us to do is to not do those things, to cease striving, to put down our weapons, to relax. Why? Well, that's what the next part of the verse says. We are to be still so that we can know that he is God. See, what happens is when we're frantically fighting, when we're trying to get through the hard season, when we're trying to run away from the threat, what happens is we think it's all about us. And we quickly lose sight of God. And instead we place the burdens on our own backs and we try to get through the storms of life by ourselves. And what Psalm 46:10 is challenging us to do is to instead be still, relax, cease striving so that we don't lose sight of God. We don't lose sight that he is with us, that he cares for us, and that he will provide a way through it. We need to be still. so that we can see that God is not only with us, but he's stronger than whatever it is that we are facing. So we be still and know that he is God. And the psalm ends with this promise that if we do that, if we be still and know that he is God, it says that he will be exalted among the nations. And what the psalmist is doing as this verse kind of wraps up is he's placing God in his rightful spot. You see, when we try to fight our own battles, we're saying that we can do it better than God. We think we can get through it on our own, and we quickly lose sight of what God has done for us. And what happens is we build our house on a faulty foundation. And inevitably what happens is it cracks and our lives fall apart. But when we be still and know that he is God, God will build a solid foundation where he is exalted. And when we take our rightful place, and that's ultimately where we can find peace and joy. And it doesn't matter if everything around us is falling apart, because God is in his rightful place and he will give us what we need. And so we are to be still. We are to know that he is God, and we are to trust in him to provide for our needs. You see, Psalm 46:10 offers us an incredible hope. That even when we're going through storms, even when we're facing threats, even when we're going through hardships in this life, that God is with us. We don't need to fear. We can be still, we can relax, because God will provide a way through. God will provide for his people. So we can be still. And when we do that, we will be reminded of all the things that he has done for us, and we can place him on the rightful place in our lives. And so here's my challenge for you. The next time you're going through a storm, be still. Pause. Reflect. Remind yourself that God is still in control. And really, I think this is a habit that we need every day. You know, for the past 6 months or so, I've been trying to practice by starting each day just sitting in silence so I can be still. Because I have a really hard time sitting still. I'm always wanting to get to the next thing. And when I take that attitude throughout my everyday life, I can forget that God's the one in control. He's the one that's guiding me. He's the one that will ultimately lead me through whatever I'm facing. And I've found I need just a few moments every single day where I pause. I sit in silence. I be still before God and remind myself of who he is and what he's done. And maybe for you, that's a good practice to start. To find a few moments each day where you can be still and listen. It can be difficult at first. It can be really difficult at first. But I believe if you practice that over time, you'll find that becomes more natural. And your faith will grow. And the next time that you face a storm, the next time you go through a hardship, you won't lose sight of God, and you'll be able to trust him through it. And further, you'll be able to have peace and joy in the midst of it. Because that's what he has for you. He has peace, he has joy, and he will provide for you. All you need to do is pause and remind yourself that he is God. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that it challenged and encouraged you in your faith journey. And if it did, would you comment letting me know your thoughts on this video, and also subscribe to this channel so that you can stay up to date on future content that's coming out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.